All right. Hello everyone. This session, the second webinar I'm doing is about a little bit on career path side, which is about how to become a software architect. Or if you want to become a software architect, you need to understand what role a software architect plays in industry. So before we really jump into this presentation, I want to share some of the information about myself. I am Vidyavrata Agarwal. I have 18 plus years of software industry experience. At present, I'm working as a principal architect with T-Mobile, a USA incorporation. We are proud to call ourselves a software company, which is in telecom space. We have a web, retail, care, B2B, B2C, and various other things, all the innovation in AI, IoT, and multiple places and spaces. Um, I am a Microsoft MVP since 2014 and a C Sharp Corner MVP since 2013. I have certifications around TOGAF, which is an architecture certification, uh, and certified Scrum Master and certified associate in project management. I have appeared for almost over a dozen Microsoft certifications, and I'm a published author of these 5 books and a technical reviewer of, on the right side, a little bit over a dozen, and I'm still doing technical review of some. Now, to get into it, let's understand what is a software architect. This is a pretty generic, a very high level definition, which is describing a software architect, which says software architect is an expert who makes high level decision choices, dictates technical standards, best practices, what sort of tools would you use, what sort of language should you use this platform or that framework. All these sort of things are usually responsibilities of a software architect. That's how people see them, that this is what software architect does. So this is a very high level, sort of like a tip of an iceberg sort of definition of a software architect. Now, many of many of the candidates, they want to become a software architect, and sometimes they know why they want to do it, sometimes they don't know why they want to do it, they just want to become something. But my recommendation is, before you want to become something, you need to know why. So why is a very important thing to know. So find your why you want to become a software architect. Unless or until you have a real reason for that, uh, then it will serve no value. Sometimes people think I'm a developer. When I grow in my career path, that's the only role I can grow into. The answer is no. You can become a manager, you can become a technical program manager, you can become just a program manager, you can become technical lead. Of course, after that, some people graduate into architect role. But there are different career streams you can pick and choose in today's world. Industry is becoming a little bit flatter these days. There are not so many titles and all that. But it's still, why do you want to become an architect? Find that why, and that why has to be something uh, which really drives your passion. Not don't become an architect just because of a fancy title, for example, or a more salary. These things may not sustain or stay longer, uh, but try to find why. Your passion is very important. If you think you are confused, you are like sort of in a limbo state, you are not sure what you want to become, then discuss with somebody. Maybe somebody can guide you and help you to find the best in yourself and become that person in future and choose a career path. Now, let's assume that we all here are agreeing and we all want to become uh, an architect, right? Now, before we really get into the detail, let's see. So let's understand in general, how does a day look like uh, in life of a software architect? There are different titles companies has: associate architect, technical architect, solution architect, DevOps architect, application architect, infrastructure architect, and then senior, principal, associate. All these labels keep adding. With these labels and titles, responsibilities change, expectations change, but it's still on an average. These are 15 things which I have documented here, certainly not in any specific order. All these 15 things usually apply to architects. Um, and all these things I'm saying with my own personal experience, what I have seen, I have learned, I have observed, and I have been doing for past, more than 15 years now. So what happens is if you try to dissect it and see, okay, what does a developer do? So developers do mostly hands-on coding. Uh, Many times in many companies, developers do not contribute to code quality or best practices or governance, for example. Um, they do not get involved into very detailed design discussions. Rather, they dev based on the design provided to them. Many devs do not do cross-team collaborations. When I say cross-team means talking to different stakeholders. At T-Mobile, we have 23 different domains where we work with. Just to name a few like payments, billing, customer, legal, finance, fraud, right? All these domains are different teams. When we start anything, we have to talk to all these domains, architects and stakeholders to align with our architecture. Then how do we go and implement it? When implementation comes, of course, you go through all the application layers, your UI, your microservices, your persistent storage. It could be Redis cache, it could be your Cassandra, NoSQL, SQL, relational, non-relational, all those sort of things come into the picture. Now, code reviews, mentoring and coaching, innovation, leadership discussions. Many devs, they do not do leadership discussions because they are not intended to, unless they have to present something which is very technical. Meetings, that is a very time consuming thing on architect side. So these are 15 things which architects usually get involved. Some of those will overlap with what a developer or a technical lead or any technical program manager will do as well. But these 15 get involved a lot around architects. Now, what happens next is many times people think that if I do a certification, like there are different certifications available today, uh, then I can become that person. For example, let's say I want to become a Scrum Master. Then does it mean if I do a Scrum Master certification, I will become one? So I'm trying to answer that question here. Um, so before I get into it, so I have approx a dozen Microsoft certifications I have appeared for so far. Now I'm Target Certified Architect, I am Certified Scrum Master, and I also did a CAPM, which is sort of a PMP exam from PMI, Program Management Project Management Institute. Now the thing is, what my observation is that certifications may not bring working knowledge. Always remember that. So many times people do it because they think this will get them into a role, but you have to have practical experience or working knowledge of what you want to become, what you want to do. Now, even though you may not have working knowledge of that thing, it certainly brings credibility. The reason why I am saying it, and I'm always in support of doing certifications for multiple reasons. What it does, it will get your foot in the door. Many organizations ask that their requirements are not like a must-have, but they prefer if somebody is a Toga certified architect. They prefer if somebody is certified Scrum Master. That's obvious. If you want to be a program manager or a project manager or a TPM and all these sort of things, then knowing how project management works, what are the terms and terminologies, all those things, it's good to have PMP or CAPM. And if you are just a dev or a tech lead or team lead and sort of thing, it's good to have some sort of technology certification from any vendor of your choice. For example, Microsoft, Google, or SAP, or Oracle. There are multiple, right? Now, how do you do it? Is that you have to, when you are preparing for certifications, there are different ways. Do not just cram the questions and go and spit the questions out in the exam and get some ranking and just get it done. That's not the right way. The way to prepare for certification and why I like doing certifications always, I do every year almost one or two. The reason is it puts you on a rigorous path of learning, and it gives you a very structured way of learning about that particular technology. For example, you want to appear for a cloud certification. Then there is Azure and AWS, Alibaba, Google Cloud, and many more. Oracle is also there. Does it mean that I have to give all of those? Do I have to appear for all the cloud certifications? Answer is no. You have to be very careful in these technical spaces. Think about there are two ways to pick which one to go for. Let's say you are working on a project and that project requires AWS or Azure, one of those, let's say, and then see what is your personal choice, what is your personal inclination, what technology you are more gravitated towards, or what will you learn faster if given an opportunity. Let's say I can learn AWS faster, for example. Then, even though my team is doing AWS or Azure, but since you can learn AWS faster, go for AWS or pick Azure because you're already working on it. But do just one of those. That does not mean that you have to give AWS, Azure, Alibaba Cloud, Oracle, Google Cloud, all these cloud certifications. No, you don't have to, because a virtual machine is a virtual machine. However, AWS, Amazon Web Service, calls it EC2 instance, means EC2 is Elastic Compute Cloud. Azure likes to call it Azure Functions, whereas AWS calls it Lambda. But the core concept behind it still stays the same, serverless. So if as an architect you understand in what situation you need to use serverless, and you have one technology certification in that space, no matter where you apply, that company uses Oracle, Google, AWS, Azure, whatever they use, if you have any one of that cloud certification, you will get your foot in the door and you will be able to excel and show your knowledge because you have practiced it, you have learned it. Many times, even if you are not having a cloud in your technology space, the application you are building, it doesn't matter. All these companies are giving like $150 or $200 free credit. Go and prepare for it and practice yourself. The scale may not be that vast and massive what in real industry is, but you can still know how to spin a virtual machine, how to create an automation script, how to deploy a website or a web app or an API, how to hit the endpoint and get work done, right? You can try all these different things, how to create a blob storage or S3 bucket to host your content or CSS file, HTML files and whatnot. All these things can be easily accomplished in your own practice. And last and not least is remember that combination is deadly. If you have working knowledge and certification, this brings a lot of value into your career path and your job. So you may want to consider that, and only one won't help as well. Now, let's get into more details. Now, what is the shape of an architect? That's the thing I wanted to share with you guys here. Now, when I talk about shape, means that what is their thinking pattern? How does an architect think differently than other people in software industry? Now, if you know about developers, or if you, I am sure everybody has been a developer. Without being a developer, if somebody really takes an architect's role, which many people I have seen does, that's not the right way of doing it. The reason is because you have never been into the shoes of a developer, so you don't know how technology spins and works and all that stuff. So it's very important to be, if you want to be an effective software architect, you must know how developers work. You should have been into developer space and gradually you grow into an architect role. Now, if you know about developers, or if you are one or you see around them, what they do is they are very heads down. What does heads down mean? Heads down mean that they just think vertically. Think of an eye shape, like a vertical bar. They are heads down. They just think about their own user story. Uh, Many developers have, they speak less. They don't present to many people. They don't talk much about architecture design. They only care about their own user story, their own tasks, because everybody is so burdened and buried under the priorities and work to be delivered and whatnot, right? Which is fair and obvious given the work situation and how industry is giving work to developers, and everybody wants to accomplish more. In those situations, developers are always I-shaped. I-shaped means they are heads down. Let me put the other perspective around it, I-shape. Think about it that they have more depth. Think about it that somebody is a front-end developer. That person is obviously will know Angular in today's world. They might know React, right? They might know Flutter. There are different new frameworks evolving. Of course, HTML5, CSS3, all these sort of things they will know. So what do they know is front-end technologies. But if you ask them, okay, I am hitting a situation when your UI is calling the data store, there is so much load on the data store, and how can we divert that load so our queries perform faster, we have less load on the database? What do you suggest? Many developers are not supposed to answer these questions. First of all, many of them also will not know the answer to that, of course. The reason is because that is something where you need more breadth. Breadth means the horizontal scale. That's why the shape is T if you see that in the middle of the screen. So architects are a little bit different. They have breadth and depth. Breadth and depth means architects are supposed to know much more than any other role in software industry. They may not know entire depth of that thing, but they will know the breadth. And the reason is because architects work with different roles in a team. Uh, let's say I'm working on something where a customer requirement is that we do not want a downtime for our website at all, even when you are going live or deploying. I hope you understand the requirement. So let's say I am architecting or I am listening the requirement from a customer that we will be launching this product in multiple phases. Um, every 2 weeks, we will deploy it to our website, and we have customer base in multiple regions and all that good stuff. And the requirement is we do not want any downtime. Uh, so how do you accomplish it? I do not know how many of you know about it or not, but this is very tricky situation. Without putting a website down, it's very hard, even no matter you are on cloud or not, because you have to stop the traffic. Your DNS will route to a page where you will say site is under maintenance. Many times you see bank websites, different websites, but how do you do these things? So it's primarily a DevOps situation. I hope everybody knows about DevOps. You can read my articles and videos on my YouTube channel about it if you need more information on DevOps. But DevOps is the future. Every team today is operating in a DevOps manner. If not, they need to. And DevOps is also part of digital transformation, if you have heard that term before, or if you know what that is. So coming back to the point now, the answer to that situation is that you need to adapt to a blue-green deployment. Now, blue-green deployment is a hardcore DevOps terminology. You need a DevOps person to spin two environments. One will be blue, one will be green at one given time. One will be having production load. The second one will be a replica of the previous deployment of production. And you deploy your new code there and then route the traffic to the new stack where you deploy the new code. And it will be just a flip and nothing will change. So for customer, website is always up and running. There was no downtime, but it has more cost involved in it because you need to maintain two stacks. And it's a production workload, so you can consider that the machines and the capability and processing power of those machines has to be production grade all the time. But there is a solution for that, right? So all these things, and the previous thing is I don't think I answered that question as well, is somebody else is asking UI dev because everything starts from the functional interaction, which is the user interface, that there is a lot of load we are receiving on our database whenever you read and write. How do we handle that? So for that, you need to apply CQRS pattern, which I talked about in my previous webinar of microservices, which is command query responsibility segregation. Now, these sort of things apply and comes or expected from an architect because architects have the breadth of the technology and patterns and practices and tools and frameworks and various other things. But depth is also important. So somebody, let's say you happen to be a very seasoned UI developer, or you are a tech lead, but you are more inclined towards server side. Now, find your passion, that what you are interested in, see what is happening in industry, what sort of architect expectations are out there, and then try to become that person. Polish yourself in those areas, and you can become that slowly. So the depth is you have to have one area where you will be a rock star. You will know a lot or more than anybody else. And that is what your I is, the vertical bar, and the horizontal bar on top of I, which makes it T, is the breadth of uh, the different areas in industry and software. So that's how the developers are I-shaped and architects are T-shaped because of breadth and depth. Now, here are few core qualities of a software architect I would like to share with you. Uh, First one is they have to have a technical background. Uh, there were times when many people were just sort of, enterprise architects, and still that role exists. No offense to anybody, but enterprise architects are usually the one uh, who does not write code. I may be wrong. In some companies they might do, but what happens is that they are primarily doing, enterprise planning and presentations and diagrams and things like that. Uh, Technical background, maybe with old systems, did not write code for many years. Um, Many times, any architect which does these sort of things is also known as ivory tower architect. So if you really want to be an effective architect, my recommendation is always stay technical. Um, Second thing is that they are very great with people skills. Um, People skills are important. When I say people skills, that does not mean what managers do with people skills. They do a lot of HR responsibilities, timesheet approval, hiring, firing, uh, pay related discussions, and all those things. That's not what I mean. People skills mean architects work with a lot of people. As an architect, you need to know how to get together with different people in your team or across teams and get work done and work with them, of course. You must understand core concepts of technology. As I said, T-shaped, you may not have time to try everything hands-on, but you may need to know a lot. You may read about it, you can read a book, you can read an article, but that also does not mean that you have to know everything. For example, do I need to know what is happening in AI space? No. But if you ask me today, I need to design a system where I will upload an image of a celebrity and it will tell me who that person is. Of course, I'm not going to write code for it. I do know there are so many image processings and AI on Azure. You upload an image and it will tell you who that person is. If that person is a famous celebrity or Google can find it, for example, right? So at the end, everything is happening through REST APIs, whether it is AI or IoT or whatever, right? So there are API calls available for that. Tomorrow somebody asks me, we need to integrate with a payment system. How do I do it? Of course, you need to go to their website, look at their SDK, think about how they are onboarding their partners, what sort of APIs they provide, and all that stuff, and you can make a recommendation, right? So you do not need to know everything, but you must understand core concepts of technology. Now, hands-on coding is a must. No matter what technology you use, you can use Java, C Sharp, .NET, Angular, Python, Golang. Any programming language is good. Make sure you know what is happening. How does it work? Core concepts, object-oriented design principles, all those things are very key and important. Nobody can take away object-oriented programming from software industry, no matter how long it will continue to live. That will continue to stay. So focus on those areas. Communication and collaboration. These are very two important things. Communication is how do you write emails? How do you talk to people? Collaboration is how do you get along with people? So I can talk to anybody, but maybe I'm not able to get work done. Maybe I'm not able to tell them what exactly I'm looking for. I don't get along well with people, right? So these two things are different things, and both are important. Presentation skills. Many people uh, they they are afraid of giving presentations. They have never given one. They want to give one. So work on your presentation skills. There are tricks around it, but just learn these things. Drive results. If you are given something, make sure you drive results to that. Sometimes you will hit a situation where your dependency could be a very basic situation. I will give. All of you are devs. Um, so let's say you have a user story. In user stories, no matter what tool do you use, you can have a predecessor and successor in a user story. So if I am writing a functional user story, which is a UI, I have a predecessor that my API user story needs to be complete, then only I can consume the API and show the, I will send the request and I will get the response and show it on the UI, right? Now, think about it that you always come and you just work on your user story and you don't care about where the API user story is. If that is the case, you are not driving results. You need to work with that dev. You need to work with that person. In my case, it's usually different domain team or different stakeholders. Uh, but at a dev level, at a very basic level, I'm talking, it could be any situation, anywhere. Drive results, look for what the issues and hurdles are, and be the pathfinder. Now, dive deep. This is another core quality of an architect. They try to dive deep. As I said, they have the depth. So sometimes you need to go and dive deep without knowing too much about technology. You may want to ask obvious questions and dive deep into that situation and come out with those, bring those concerns and issues and curiosity to the surface that every team understands and say, yes, that's a valid point. How do we do that? A big picture. Architects, when I said that they have breadth, that also resonates with the term big picture. A big picture means they have a bigger view of the entire landscape. Usually devs, they only care about their own user stories and they only care about what tasks are assigned to them. And there are valid reasons for that. And they have all the rights to have that viewpoint. But architects usually see entire portal or platform or framework or product, whatever they are building, they see that as a whole. They have a bigger picture about it. So try to see that bigger picture. Okay, how does it contribute? What is the business value? Who are the consumers of it? What other backend teams are involved? These are very basic things you can start thinking about. Ownership and accountability. So they take the ownership, of course, and if any company is really heavy on architecting and designing software systems, ownership and accountability is very important because architects are supposed to drive those things with various domains and bringing them into an alignment and get work done, and also agreeing upon timelines by when that thing will be completed or not. What path you need to take, that could be a short-term path or a long-term path. Uh, At the bottom, I have few more. These are very important. At the bottom, have a backbone. What does it mean? This means is that usually we get into a situation where we know the solution is not right or this thing is not being done in the right way. This can improvise, can be better, but we don't say it. So have a backbone means you should have a backbone and you should have courage, or just consider like you have to be courageous that you can say out those things in a nicer way, of course, but do it per the politics and diplomacy in your place. Don't get into trouble because of these things as well, but develop a backbone. So what happens is you need to know how to say things and when to say things, or at least say, because this is not the right solution. Uh, Even though it is not right, how do you handle it then? So you said it, it's not right, but then also say, okay, if we are doing it, we are incurring a technical debt and we should document that technical debt. So these are the things you can think about and start focusing upon. They insist on high standards. What are high standards? Somebody can do cowboy coding. They code whatever they want. They name a class whatever they want. They name an interface whatever they want. Uh, they can do things in different manners without any consideration, governance. That's not right. So insist on high standards means always look out for the best you can. What is the best possible way? Of course, it has to be within the timelines of the project, but still you can accomplish a lot of things. So insist on high standards. When it comes to insist on highest standards, this goes back to ownership and accountability. You have to hold other people accountable when they are doing that stuff. And it could be very small thing, it could be very big thing. For example, somebody is not naming an interface right. Somebody is not naming a class name right. They don't name variables correctly, right? It could be anything. But when you look out for those things, It could be small or big, it doesn't matter. You are insisting on high standards and holding others accountable and educating them as well. One of the most important and last here, when I say last, here means in this list, but not the last for architects. There are many more, but I kept few here for this presentation purposes. Influential. Uh, Build influence. If you are not an influencer, then you are not an architect. When I say influencer, you do not have to influence wrong or negative decisions on anybody. Influencer means you have to bring positive things. You have to influence your decision on them. You have to be persuasive. You should be able to convey what you are trying to say, your viewpoint. So all these things you have to develop in yourself if you really want to become an effective software architect. Now let's move on to the next slide, where I will talk about what all you can do to become one. Okay, so I will give you a few tips and tricks that how you can become one, what all you can do in your daily work or whatever you are doing. So before we really do it, always remember that you start small, think big. When I say that, what it means is that what I mean is that if you have a plan, right? Everybody has a plan in life, but always remember that plan won't work unless you work on the plan. So when I say start small, think big means that you are thinking big that I want to become a software architect. Or let's say you are already on that path. Many times we just think that I'm already a dev lead or a senior developer. Now next promotion will be an architect. I have seen many times that does not happen. And then people get upset about it. They say, oh, I was expecting that to become, I did not. And when you talk to your superiors, they say, oh, you are not there yet. We don't see this in you. We don't see that in you. I don't know. I have had few folks. I know some people who have been into that situation. The reason is because you never did more than a dev and you just expected, or we as a human being, we just expect that thing to come and fall on our lap. This is not how it works. So here are a few tips and tricks for you which you can start applying in your life starting today or tomorrow whenever you think you are ready. So first thing is get the context of the larger problem. When you go in your sprint grooming, be all ears. When I say be all ears, mean listen. Like my style of going in a meeting is my calendar is full of meetings mostly. It's very hard for me to find time. Sometimes I accept meetings tentative. It means it's not priority. Sometimes I get ad hoc meeting requests, or I have something to deliver which I need to finish on my own, right? So when I go into a meeting, I go without electronics. Even if I take my laptop with me, I don't turn it on. It's not open in front of me, basically. That's what I mean. Usually I don't take. I take my notebook. I'm still old school. I take a pen and my notebook and I will make notes if I have to. But I usually go without electronics. My phone is with me, of course, so I can find the meeting rooms and all those things. The problem here is what happens when you go in a meeting. You are just listening what you want to listen. But when you go in that meeting, you are spending that 30 minutes or 1 hour of your very important time. But you are not getting enough information because you are always doing something. Multitasking is good, but multitasking is also bad. So I have a habit of joining various grooming sessions, even though I'm an architect. There are multiple reasons for that because in addition to a system design and architecture, I'm also passionate about maximizing the dev productivity, how developers can become more productive, what processes they can adapt to, what issues are we facing, or team is facing, which they can get better at. So when you go in a meeting, forget about multitasking, electronics, it's your personal choice. But the idea here is get the context of the larger problem. Try to understand what is happening. Many companies create user stories in a way, and that's how the right way is that they will tell you what the business ask is. Why are we doing it? What is the motive behind? So they will tell you the larger problem. Okay, like for example, there was an initiative which we recently did. I drove that, the architecture and worked with team. End-to-end was to uh, do the payment arrangement. So at T-Mobile, in COVID situation especially, that was a very phenomenon. The feature which we launched in a record timeline in a very effective manner was payment arrangement. Payment arrangement means you are a small or medium business. Your telecom bill is coming due, but due to this COVID situation, of course, many businesses are closed or whatever. You don't want to pay that $500 or $1,000 bill right away because that was the amount due for you. So I drove a feature in architecture, design, delivery, working with devs, cross collaborating, all these things to design that feature and build it and get it out of the door and deploy it, right? So in that, we mentioned why are we doing it. So the context of the problem was our customers having pain points to pay the bill on time in COVID situation. Hence, we want to give them flexibility that they can arrange payment in small installments. Minimum due is $2. Your bill is coming due $1,000. You just pay $2 today and you say, okay, when do you want to pay rest? Every 1 month, we will charge that credit card of yours, the amount you tell us. So think about it. If you don't have that context, and I give you a user story, go to the make payment page and make an API call to the backend domain and say, search if you have a payment arrangement eligibility or not. There was a logic behind it. So you make those API calls, do something in your UI, show the screen, show the credit card detail page, fill the details, submit, and say, okay, done, confirmation. That is what usually a dev does, but always look out for, okay, what is the objective? Why are we doing it? Now, if you relate it back to what you did, now you will know, oh, my user story actually contributed to that bigger goal, which helped the customer. And that's how you become customer focused. And that is where I'm saying, think of customer journey. Customer journey means that when customer starts interacting with your system or become customer focused. All right. So ask clarifying questions, understand requirements. Many times we don't ask questions. We just go sit there, come out, start developing. Then we say, oh, how about this? The reason is why we didn't think that when you were in grooming. I have seen it many times. A few things could be obvious, which can come late, and that's what Agile is for. But that does not mean that we keep asking requirements, and requirement cannot come in the middle as well. It cannot change. Cut the ambiguity. Cut the ambiguity means you need to find the real problem really early, as soon as possible. Don't get lost in the chaos. Or so much ambiguity is there. So cut the ambiguity, get to the real problem, understand what the context is, and get going. I already explained what the think of customer journey is, how customer will come, what their problem is, what all pages and the endpoints you will be touching. Think long term. When you say long term means how do you write that thing better? What are the issues when you do logging? What will happen when this data goes in the logging? If you are logging the information for your own traceability and production issues and whatnot, and you took the credit card number, are you masking it or not? You cannot log entire credit card number there in the log, right? Think of those things. That's just one example. Long term could be, okay, what happens tomorrow if something changes? What happens if notification is not delivered to the consumer? Think of those things. And that also, rolls over to the next one, design a reactive system. I wrote an article about reactive system. You can find it on my blog, on my LinkedIn articles as well, LinkedIn posts. A reactive system is a system which has four core qualities in it. A reactive system is a resilient system. It's responsive, which can be easily done with today's web frameworks like Angular, for example, responsive web apps. So it's responsive, it's resilient, it's elastic, means it can scale, and it is message driven, means usually asynchronous processing. So think of those things. Very easy example I can give you of resilient is that retry pattern, a timeout pattern, circuit breaker. All these are the patterns which apply to designing a reactive system and especially contributes towards resilient system design. So if usually we have a connection string, let's say you are opening a connection to a database which is running on a VM on Azure or an EC2 instance on AWS, Amazon Cloud. Now, since it's on network, it's on a cloud up there, there could be a hiccup in your own network. And when you are establishing that connection string and it didn't go through, connection failed, what do you do now? Think of those things. If you are really thinking from a reactive design system principle point of view, you will put retry there. And these days, all these things can be done in connection string itself. If not, your API should know how to retry after a few milliseconds. And if not, after a few retries, what to show to the user interface. So all these things you need to ask in your growing. Many times as a dev, we go in the meeting, we depend upon Scrum Master and the product owner or the analyst who is explaining the user story, that they are supposed to serve you everything in silver platter. But that's not going to happen. Everybody plays different role. You are supposed to ask them these questions because they may not be that technical, which you are. So you ask them, okay, tell me one thing. There is a database involved, as I can see. What would you recommend I should be showing if after few retries, let's say we have a standard of 3 retry. If you don't have that standard, talk to an architect or you build that standard and step up and think like an architect. That I noticed in our coding today, we do not have any retry pattern and we just believe in one hit, it will establish the connection. And remember the 9 fallacies of network. There's a post on my LinkedIn as well, a very good diagram. So network is unreliable and it's supposed to be. So ask those questions. What should I show? What is the error message supposed to be? That error message is supposed to have proper verbiage. At T-Mobile, that error message comes from the business team. It's not that I can type whatever I want. Many error messages, many messages to which we show to user go from proper legal review. The language cannot be offensive. Language has to have a meaning. So different companies follow different rules based upon their engagement with the customer out there. But ask these questions. And that's why you need to be all ears, get the context of the larger problem. Ask clarifying questions. Now, own the design and hand off to analysts and devs. If you are an architect or you are playing a role of an architect, let's say you are the one who does, many devs do it, and that's pretty cool, and that's how you evolve as an architect, is you design the architecture. You design the complete layered diagram or maybe a sequence diagram, or you do a lot of whiteboarding, which is pretty cool. You should continue to do that, but that will help. And that is how architects evolve and architects do all that stuff. But don't only keep it to yourself. Go and educate others. So for example, you are even a UI dev, but you happen to know full stack and you know even how UI API will give you the data and you figured it out already, then put the sequence diagram. There are so many few tools available out there. Plant UML is the one which I use. At T-Mobile, we use Plant UML to create sequence diagrams. For past, I think when I joined T-Mobile, I drew, I don't know, over 100 sequence diagram, very detailed depth, multiple domains, jumping back and forth. So do those things. Uh, I have drawn unlimited number of architecture diagrams, presented to so many people, leadership. So hand it off to analyst. If you have an analyst who works on Swagger, API contracts, class diagrams, whatever, share it with them. In your do a small team meeting, call 2, 3 people, show them that diagram, API dev, UI dev, QA, so they know. QA also need to know how hops are happening, what API testing they need to do. Maybe they use Postman, whatever they do, right? Now, the second last is validate and put guardrails. When I say validate means whatever architecture you have put, you need to validate that, whether it has been implemented or not. For example, you put a coding guideline and best practice that when we do have the PII, means personal identifiable information, or PCI, like um, this card industry, payment card industry, is like credit card number, debit card number, account number, routing number, all these things. You cannot just put those in the logger as is. So when you give the guidelines, go and check that log. Wherever you are logging it, go and check. Do a random audit. Okay, we did that in last sprint. How are we logging? Look first on user stories or transactions which has happened and go and verify that yes, credit card number was actually masked. If it is a 16 digit, first 12 were like either an asterisk or an X and only last 4 were visible. So validate and put guardrails. How do you put guardrails? You put guardrails by audits, by code reviews, holding people accountable. sharing the code guidelines with the larger audience, because if I'm a new dev, maybe I don't know where the guidelines are. Nobody told me that I have to mask it. So make sure you put guardrails, educate your team that nobody will code like that. Even if somebody does educate them, provide hand holding, right? Coach them and work on your people skills. That is very important. I cannot explain enough or uh, emphasis enough on people skills. Now, this is another problem I see with a lot of technical people, uh, that they 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 intend to think that my technical skills will trump everything. My technical skills will mesmerize everything, and it will get me wherever I want to be. I will tell you one thing: your technical skills are your hard skills. Okay, that's what you are very strong at. Technical skills are hard skills. People skills are soft skills. People skill mean how do you talk to people? How do you write an email? How do you collaborate with others? How do you communicate? Do you have presentation skills? How do you carry yourself? So all these things are important, and that will take you places. Let me give you another analogy. As I said, people skills are called soft skills. So your technical skills are actually hard skills. Let me give you an analogy. What hardware can do without software? Think about it. Let's say you got a very nice processor, but if there is no software, let's say you do not have a Visual Studio 2019 running on it, or a very nice IDE or a very heavy framework you want to play with running on that hardware, what is the value of hardware, right? But at the same time, a good software also needs a great hardware. So now, if you understand my analogy, what I am trying to explain here, and you can really read and feel between the lines, is these two things go together. And if you see the ratio is very limited. 80% of your technical skills are not helping you to move forward because of your 20% of your soft skills. So if you develop 20% of your soft skills, the 80% of your hard skills, your technical skills, will help you to get places. So many times we think, oh, I'm a developer, I don't do this, I don't do that. That's a manager's job, to be nice with people and all that stuff. No, that's not. Manager is a different role altogether. But working with people is a core skill in today's world if you want to grow, or anybody want to grow. So remember that. Now, these are few last bits of advices. Always remember that: find your craft, find passion for your craft. So if you are passionate about UI, learn about it. You can maybe become a UI architect. You never know. Good is enemy of great. So many times we think, I know all these things, I know everything about it. That's not right. Nobody knows everything, right? So, and before you learn how, learn why. Many times what happens is, if you are playing that role or anybody, what we want to know is, we want to know, how do I do it? So if somebody is asking you, okay, um, we need to build a responsive web app, or a website supposed to be responsive, and in your mind automatically comes Angular, which is okay, but why Angular? Somebody will say, let's do caching. We need to apply caching, and somebody says Redis cache. Okay, why Redis cache? There is memcache also, right? So there is a difference between two, and that's why many times when you go in interviews, different companies have different way of interviewing. I think today industry is going more towards a very different kind of interview. Those days are gone when you can cram, tell me what is .NET, tell me what is Java, tell me what is polymorphism. So those days are gone. If somebody is interviewing like that, that's a wrong way of interviewing people. The real question is, tell me a situation where you implemented polymorphism and how it helped. Or, I see in your resume you implemented .NET, tell me why. I'm asking you the same thing, but in a different manner, and you need to understand now why, right? So now, if you really want to think about bullet point number 3, go back to your workplace and ask these questions to yourself and your architects, and find answers by yourself if you don't know. at least have a story ready for it. Why Redis cache? Sometimes if you say, oh, we implemented caching to improve its performance, so subsequent calls will not go to the database and it will reduce the load on the system. Our system will be performant, responsive, and highly scalable, and all that good stuff, right? Okay, very good. What type of caching did you use? Oh, I don't know. We did some caching. You don't know what caching did you use. You wrote the code, but because we don't pay attention to the details and depth, hence I don't know. But you said Redis cache. Okay, why Redis cache? So there are differences. So if you are using Azure, think Azure caching. Search that. You will get to know what all caching techniques are available in Azure or in AWS. There is a Memcache. There is a Redis cache. Okay, we use Redis cache because of what? Could we have used Memcache? Yes, of course you could have. But then why did you use Redis? If that is the case, then also have an answer ready and think about it. Why? Because you used Redis in the previous project. Redis is the most commonly used cache implementation. It has an open source background. Redis client is a very easy desktop tool where you can see key value pair in your system when you put something in the cache. All these things you can think about. Go technology by technology. Talk to your architects why. Many times it's company's inclination. Company likes to work on AWS for whatever reason. Some architects like to bring the same technology which they used in previous project in every other project. Well, we can debate on that. But think about these things. Now, next bullet point number 4 is know what you don't know. Many times people don't know what they don't know, and it's a very important skill. You should know what you don't know. For example, uh, I don't know how to design a system. Let's say I ask you, can you tell me how WhatsApp shows you delivered, seen, or last seen? You see, in WhatsApp, you get those check marks, single check mark, then it becomes double, and then it becomes double and blue colored. So if you have to design a system of that, how will you do it? What is the background behind it, right? Uh, how would you design? How do you think that Facebook designed a live stream? How do they handle that much workload of live stream? Millions and millions of users join across the globe. How do they do it? How does their architecture look like, right? So I'm just giving you some examples, and these are intentionally I'm putting it here with the purpose. I'm telling you these because these also resonates with architects. So you should know what you don't know, right? uh, Next bullet point is very important. What got you here won't get you there. What does it mean? It has a very a depthful meaning in it. It's a very powerful sentence I put up there. What it means is if you continue doing what you have been doing, then you will stay here where you are. If you want to go to next place, you have to do things differently. And if you see your background, if somebody is still doing the same thing, you will stay at the same place. Same place means maybe same role. You will continue doing the same sort of projects, same sort of situation. So you have to do something different to get to the next place. And that's what I have been talking in the past few slides, what all you need to do. And those are not everything, of course. That, as I said at the beginning, it's a tip of the iceberg, but you have to change the way you do things. You have to change your your perspective. How do you see things? You have to change the way, how do you work with people? You have to change the way, how have you been handling and working with technology? Uh, Second last bullet point is investment in self returns the best interest. Many times people don't invest in themselves. They just wait for things to happen and fall in your lap and things will take place. Yes, things will take place. I do believe in karma. It will take place. It will happen. But you have to do something for that, right? Nothing will fall in your place. And even if it does, maybe you are not worthy of it because you are not prepared for it. Let's say tomorrow, for example, tomorrow you become architect for whatever reason. You just designated to that role because they couldn't find anybody. You are the chosen one at that time. But because you did not do those things, how would you survive in that role? Uh, Maybe people will not show confidence in you, right? So we all are competing. Today's every industry is a very competitive industry. You have your peers, you have your colleagues at work, you have people outside your companies who look at you. how would you do that? How would you establish yourself as a brand and say, yes, I'm the one and I deserve this position, right? So investment in self returns the best interest means invest in your skills. Always uplift yourself. Try to become a better person than you were yesterday. Uh, the last one is have an actionable plan. And as I said earlier, a plan won't work until you work on a plan. What does it mean is that you need to find what all things you are good at. You need to find what all things you need to improvise upon. You need to find what all I need to do, which I am doing more or less, so I can become what I want to be. I do not know about your work situation. The ideal way of doing any such thing is to get together with somebody, find a mentor. Like at T-Mobile, we have mentoring program. So I am registered as a mentor. Two people, some mentees registered there. Then that system, I do not know how, maybe based upon their interest and the skills which I have put up there, what all I can help them with, like executive presence, leadership, presentation, technology, and all. There are different checkpoints you put. And once I'm registered as a mentor and mentor program team accepts me as a mentor, then and there are different mentees who wants to be mentored by someone also registers, then that system finds a match and they assign you the mentees. So I have got two mentees this year. I am also mentoring three girls from Northern Eastern University in Seattle, Washington. They appeared for Student IT Architecture Competition 2020, where they designed a complete architecture, and their presentation is on this weekend, 24th. It will be a full day job we are doing on Zoom this year because people cannot meet outside due to COVID-19 situation. So what I'm trying to say is that if in your workplace or in industry, you look up to something, find a mentor, ask them, how did you do it? Because if that person, you think that person did in a reasonable way, and you want to become one or follow that path, ask them, how did you do that? Find a mentor, set up some time with them, and learn from their journey. You know, when I say that, it's better to learn from other person's mistakes. It's also better to learn from other person's success stories. So their failure and success both will educate you, right? And you can learn from them. So that is an important thing. If you Many companies today are doing it. Ask your architects or somebody in your company who you think can help you. If not, ask outside the world. Many people on LinkedIn are there. We are connected with the entire world, regardless of your continent and geographical location. Ask for help if you're really interested. But many people are able to do it by themselves. But having a mentor doesn't hurt. That's what my viewpoint is. Um, and the last is this one: fake it until you make it. What does it mean is it's a very powerful saying, by the way. What it means is that you need to really imitate and show that confidence, build that attitude in yourself, and demonstrate that mindset. And how do you work? What do you want to become? Right? Many times when you go in your performance reviews, I can't tell you countless time I have been with my colleagues and peers. They go in a review, they come out, and they didn't get what they wanted to get in terms of designation. And of course, with designation comes your salary. So they hear you are not ready, but we don't see these things in you, and all that stuff, right? So there are multiple backgrounds involved, but what I meant to say is you step up in your role. So if you are a dev and there are no coding guidelines, or if there are coding guidelines, which has been documented maybe 2, 3 years ago, but now things changed. You are thinking more about you need to mask personal identifiable information. That's an industry trend. You cannot log any customer's credit card number in your logs just like that, roaming around in production logs and whatever, right? What if somebody hacked that system? Nobody's supposed to know credit card number and all that stuff like that, right? So put those things out there, document it what you did, right? Create sequence diagrams, share with your team, educate all your analysts and all how to work with them. Show them how hops are happening from your UI to Apache gateway to your API gateway, whatever you use. It could be Apache. At T-Mobile, we use Apache. There could be Azure's API gateway, right? How things take place. Think about it. show that mindset and attitude and way of working, uh, what you want to become. It could be architect, it could be anything else. So fake it until you make it. This is a very important, um, saying, which really helps. And that also puts you into the shoes of that person because you start mimicking like that. And once you start taking those responsibilities at your current role, you are automatically making yourself visible to your leadership that yes, you have been taking care of these things and you can talk about it. And one last thing, even if you don't get it there, you will get it somewhere else. Believe it. So the only thing is that you don't have to stop doing it. You have to get better and you have to keep doing and work on your plan with right mindset and right attitude and right skills, and you will get it one day. Okay. So these all things I had to talk about today.